Rishi Sunak is under pressure by senior military officials, as well as countries like Estonia, to raise UK defence spending. Now, the PM has not met his predecessor Liz Truss's pledge to meet the NATO target of 3% of GDP going on defence by 2030. So, upping our defence spending, basically. Of course, the ongoing issue in Ukraine. Zelensky is going to meet with Sunak at some point soon, we believe. Boris Johnson, by the way, just a little aside, is apparently going to look at how he can invest his time in getting a load of money for Ukraine. That chap is really looking for statues of himself left, right and centre. And fair enough, if you ask me. But defence editor at The Telegraph, Coughlin, has also said that spending should rise. Not only as a signal to Russia that Britain take Europe's security seriously, but also because now is not the time to go soft on Putin. Con joins me right now. Thank you very much, Con. Great to have you on the show. So you don't think it's time for us to go soft on Putin? Realistically, can we afford to increase our defence spending by that much? What would our military look like? Would it transform our military, would it?
Well, I think we should find ways to afford it. We spent a lot of money on furlough and other things. And defence spending compared with the overall national budget is a relatively small percent. We're talking, as I say, 2% at the moment. And there's been a lot of talk over the last year about raising it to 3%. What would we do with it? Well, first of all, we'd start rebuilding the army, which is currently being cut to its smallest size since the Napoleonic Wars, which to my mind is utter madness. You know, we've got the biggest war in Europe since the Second World War. We've got Russia on the march. Vladimir Putin has made it quite clear.
Well, I'm worried as well, Con. I'm worried about whether or not just is our army being stripped back, but it's gone all woke and soft, for goodness sake. I can remember an advertising campaign during which halfway through it there was a pause for a call to prayer. You wouldn't do that on a battlefield, would you? I mean, are we having to, before we can fire at the Russians, would we have to ask them what gender they are and how they feel about the whole situation or not?
Well, there has been a lot of silliness in all the armed forces, actually. And the RAF has just had a terrible time with people resigning over woke issues because the RAF was demanding all kind of diversity targets as opposed to people meeting the normal.
So hang on a minute, Con. Sorry, just quickly on this. The defence of the realm is not something that I think should be left up to diversity quotas, frankly. I think that should be very much the best people for the job. But you are saying that in the RAF there have been diversity quotas, so potentially good, able-bodied pilots who would be good at defending this country have not been selected because somebody who ticks a certain box has been. Is that right?
Well, that's what the row's been about, and it's completely turned the RAF upside down. And I think there is a need for more diversity within all the armed forces. But as you say, the fundamental duty of the armed forces is the defence of the realm, and to do that, they've got to be able to fight effectively and robustly. And a lot of the wokeness that you're talking about does undermine the credibility. I mean, I've heard stories of tanks having to be fitted with protective cladding so people don't get hurt if they get bumped by them. And you do hear some very silly stories, but fundamentally, you know, we still have some pretty good, strong, robust units within the military, but they're very small. And the first thing I would say to answer your question is if there was more money for defence, we could regenerate the size of all the armed forces. The Navy doesn't have enough sailors to man both aircraft carriers, for example.
Which is bonkers. And also, by the way, sorry, the idea that you just used the word both aircraft carriers. I mean, there's only two, which doesn't seem like an awful lot from where I'm sitting. Well, by the way, when it comes to the old quotas and diversity quotas, I'm sure it will come as a great comfort to a Russian or an Iraqi pilot that they were shot down by a member of the LGBTQ plus community who's also an ethnic minority. I mean, I imagine they'll be relieved by that it wasn't a working class white lad from Carlisle. But there we go. So actually, how screwed would we be if it came to war with Putin? Because from where I'm sitting anyway, it might take quite a long time for our European friends to get their backsides in gear. By the time it had gone through the EU's committees, Putin would be on our doorstep, would he? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think we could rely on our armed forces to put up a good fight. But, you know, there's some pretty basic things, like we don't have enough stocks of ammunition. So how long do we sustain military operations against a resourceful foe like Putin? I mean, Putin himself has run down his ammunition stocks and is now in terrible trouble, which is why he's relying on Iran. But nonetheless, if we are going to have a credible fighting force, you need enough bombs and missiles and mortar rounds and bullets to actually fight.